Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Rod Fleming here, and we're going to talk today about the cotton ceiling. Okay? Now, before we start, please remember to like and share the video. Please go onto one of the links that I will give you to the various funding sites, that is Patreon, PayPal, GoFundMe, Buy Me a Coffee, Ko-Fi, and just give me a little something for this wonderfully entertaining article that takes me hours to research and to present to you for your entertainment. Thank you. The cotton ceiling is a term that was originally coined by a porn star by the name of Drew-Deveaux. Now, Drew is a post-operative trans woman. That is, she was born male, and she's had surgery to create a neo-vagina. So the first thing to be aware of is that Drew was not talking about a situation wherein similar people to her, but still with penises, were pursuing women. This is a person with a vagina, okay, albeit a neo-vagina, who is interested in cis women and presumably other women like herself. And here's a little quote from Drew. When I proposed the notion of the cotton ceiling a few years back, the violent backlash against me was profound. Not just death threats, but even more awful were the accusations of rape, of being a rapist. As a survivor of sexual assault, this cut deeper than anything. The cotton ceiling was meant as a means to question why certain bodies, trans or fat or disabled or racialized bodies for starters, are sometimes seen as undesirable, unfuckable, unlovable. It was not a violent term, but as is almost always the case, cis activists violently attacked the struggle for trans equality through making our bodies and identities intrinsically violent. Now, you may or not approve, or you may disapprove or approve of what Drew's saying there, but to try and unpack that a little bit, the cotton ceiling, my notes down here, is the tendency of trans women to be, this is autogynephilic trans women, right? There is no way an HSTS trans woman is even going to be interested in any of this. And while Drew-Deveaux is actually an attractive trans woman, she's still AGP. Cotton ceiling's tendency of trans women to be excluded from the higher echelons of brackets cis-dominated women's and queer spaces. And I'm reading here, I don't use language like this. Specifically within the porn industry, but also in society in general. It is a manifestation of trans misogyny at the intersection of cis-sexism, misogyny, and the glass ceiling. Now, again, that's kind of controversial. The cotton refers to underwear, implying that the contents of a trans woman's underwear are of importance. Now, the actual cotton ceiling referred to by Deveaux, and she made this quite clear in numerous interviews at the time. I believe the phrase was originally coined in 2012, but there was a huge row, really massive row across the internet in 2015, many of the traces of which, by the way, have quietly disappeared. I keep links to just about everything that I visit on the internet, which takes a hell of a space, you know. And a lot of the links that I used then when I was investigating this in 2015 have just gone. They've just gone dead. So, you know, I'm not going to use the Wayback Machine to get all of them, but it's interesting that that's happened. Wikipedia, for example. Now, you should never ever trust Wikipedia because it always has an agenda. But Wikipedia has no article on this, which is really quite surprising, considering the amount of fury and heat and very little light that was generated only 6 years ago. The cotton ceiling is actually referring to women, that is cis women's underwear, right? The point being that a trans woman, and this would be an AGP trans woman, because an HSDS would never do this, can't get through it. The cotton ceiling is a physical barrier to her achieving what she wants, her desire, which is to penetrate cis women. Except you have to remember that Drew-Deveaux is not, he doesn't have a penis, right? That's been removed. So this would be some other kind of sexual activity she's talking about. But basically what she's saying is trans women are prevented from accessing the sexual parts of cis women by the cotton ceiling. Okay? Now, she actually went further, and again you're going to find it really difficult to find this because so much has disappeared, but at the time what she said was that she found it really upsetting that cis women, lesbians and particularly feminists, would be very much on board, you know, with the idea of trans women as an oppressed class, you know, very much on board with the idea of, you know, solidarity and intersectionality and all this complete claptrap that comes out of postmodernists. But they still, you know, they could have complete physical support. And Drew actually said, you know, they'll go on our marches, they'll march beside us, they'll protest with us, but see getting their knickers off, no chance. And she saw that, Drew saw that as a form of hypocrisy. She said, you know, you're prepared to be our, you know, absolutely loyal friends, apparently loyal friends, and, you know, march with us and be really on side with us, being really right on, you know, get the fist up. But as soon as it comes to taking your pants off, absolutely no bloody way. Ain't going to happen. And remember, Drew doesn't have a penis. So this isn't really, you know, rapey in that sort of way. She's not trying to get her dick inside a woman at all. That's not what she's trying to do. She's trying to have some other kind of relationship with women, which involves vaginas. I'm not going to go too far into this because, you know, really, do I need to? I'm a big fan of vaginas, but, you know, never mind. It's public space. So, what was actually being talked about here wasn't so much the lack of access to these parts of cis women's bodies, which DeVos actually seemed to accept, you know, in terms of her relationships with women who were not, you know, radical lesbian activists or intersectional lesbian activists. She's like, you know, that's not the issue here because I know that ain't going to work. What bothers me is the fact that these people are busy saying that they're so completely on side with me, you know. It's like, you know, we support you, yeah, we're right behind you, but we're not taking our pants off for you. And you might argue that DeVos' argument is somewhat male in nature, and it is, but that doesn't mean she don't have a good point. She does have a fair point. And I've made this point in other contexts as well, you know, in context of transphobic men, for example, who will say, oh no, it's okay, I support trans women. There's no way I'd beat up a trans woman. I wouldn't throw a trans woman out on the street. And some of them will even say, oh no, I'll come out in support of them, but I'm not going to bed with them. Absolutely not. No, that could never happen. No. And, you know, I made a video, tongue-in-cheek video last week about this. And obviously these always draw out some particularly slimy responses. But that's exactly the same thing. You're saying, I completely support this person, but I don't accept that person as fully human. Right? Because that's really what it's all about. You know, I can't accept that person as a partner for me because I don't really accept that that person is what that person is actually claiming to be. Right? And so what Drew-Deveaux was saying was that these cis women who were apparently her supporters and supporters of women like her, actually when it came down to it weren't at all, because they didn't believe that Drew-Deveaux was a woman. Now you can believe or believe not that Drew-Deveaux was a woman. It doesn't make any difference to me. You know, if I met her in the street, if I was talking to her, I would certainly call her she, and I would treat her as a woman. She's not interested in men, so that the question doesn't really arise. The point is that you can't just be one way and then the other way. You can't virtue signal how wonderfully, you know, trans accepting you are, and then say, no. Yeah, okay, fair enough, but no bloody way am I going to bed with you. No. My pants ain't coming off. And that's what the cotton ceiling's all about. So people have kind of said it's like this kind of reaction from women in general towards trans women, but that's really not what it is. It was expressing Drew-Deveaux's anger, and she's a very intelligent, articulate woman, by the way. She has written quite a number of things, and, you know, just because she works in porn, don't imagine that she's some bimbo. You know, she's not. She's smart. Smart, attractive woman who is a lesbian. Well, she considers herself to be a lesbian. She She has a pseudo-vagina, she's got a neo-vagina, and she likes women. She don't want men anywhere near it. So you make up your own mind about what you think she is. I'm going to go with what she says she is, you know. And she makes a very good point, that people will accept her, that women would accept her, except that there's a level which they can't go past. And of course the analogy is with the old glass ceiling, which was coined by feminists in a way to suggest that women could not rise above a certain point within on the corporate ladder, because there was this invisible ceiling. That's why it's called the glass ceiling. This invisible ceiling that they couldn't rise above. Well, I mean, we know that's absolute bunk now, because women sit at the highest positions in governments and corporations all over the world. The argument was always bogus, and it remains so. But Drew's argument is interesting, and it does get, how can we put this? It does get misinterpreted. She wasn't putting out a broad attack on women at all, and she wasn't being rapey. She was just saying, you know, consider this intellectual dichotomy that you've got here. You're saying you would never harm trans women, and you totally support them, but you just won't have sex with them. And I would say the same to men who, in response to my last week's video, I would say the same to men who claim that they are absolutely, oh no, I'm a transporter, I'm an ally, I do this, I do that, you know, hey, I'll give, you know, this, I'll give all that, I'll virtue signal until the, you know, my hair comes out, but there's no bloody way I'm getting into bed with one of them. And that's hypocrisy. There's a hypocrisy there. And I don't care what you say, it is. Anyway, that's enough for that one. See you later.